Alrighty, let's get moving. We are the mighty Guru Yogurt. Oh yes, we are. I've decided what I'm going to do. Yes, and what I'm going to do is this. I am going to ride through the mountains to Coniston. I'm then going to have a ride down Langdale. I'm going to come home via Rhino's Pass. And back down the Duddon Valley. Yes, that's what I'm going to do. That should get me home by about 4 o'clock. I'll get out of my motorcycle gear, put on my kayaking gear, and head out to Coniston Water to meet up with the Murgatroyd to be going kayaking. Yes, kayaking. Can't wait. Well now, I'm quite impressed with this new camera mount out the back here. Checked over the footage when I stopped in the lay-by just now. Get out of the way, you squirrel. Honestly. Yes, so quite impressed with it. Checked over the footage. It's pretty damn stable, which I was pleasantly surprised by. So this is going to become part of the regular camera kit. It cost, I don't know, 30 odd quid. Less than 40 anyway. I think it was 33 something. And yeah, it just does the job. It does the job. Because camera angles are so important. It'll be interesting to work out where else I can fit it on the bike. I think I can probably do it off the crash bars down there, so that might make for an interesting angle. We will see. Life is one big learning curve, and that's the way that it ought to be. Well now, bones of contention today. Bones of contention. If you don't want to hear the mighty Guru Yogurt discussing matters of great weight and political and philosophical importance, then now is the time to switch channels. I would point you in the direction of, I don't know, somebody saccharine and anodyne. Who springs to mind? Ooh, I don't know. But if you don't want to be challenged, if you don't want to listen to me having a rant about the latest government attack on my freedom, then you probably should switch off now, because that's exactly what I'm going to do. Yes. What then? Two Wheels has wound me up this time. I'll tell you what it is. There is a controversy raging at the moment, certainly in the what's to me laughingly referred to as mainstream media, about the events of Saturday. Now, anybody with their finger on the pulse of popular culture will know that the Glastonbury Festival just happened, and the source of the controversy that I allude to was essentially with regard to two bands that I've known for some while and followed for some while. I like their music. Yeah, it might be surprising that a 64-year-old bloke is heavily into rap music. Well, historically, there are very good reasons for that. You know, one of my favourite artists ever, Lou Reed, was in fact the arguably grandfather of rap. And also Bob Dylan. Yeah, Bob Dylan. And so, interestingly enough, one of the bands that has caused all of this controversy is named Bob Vylan. And I was reading in the paper this morning a bit of an interview with them, and they make it clear that neither of the two people in this band are Bob Dylan fans. They just thought the name was amusing. They're at the centre of this raging controversy. There's a Nazi Trust van. I hate the Nazi Trust. I'm not calling for the death of the Nazi Trust. No, I'm calling for something much more serious than that, which is the complete, peaceful and democratic overthrow of capitalism as a social system that has fundamentally outlived its usefulness and has now become dangerously fucking obsolete. I will develop that point in a moment. So, 2 bands played at Glastonbury on Saturday. We'll deal with them in their chronological order of performance. So, Bob Vylan, a band that I know about incidentally because I have a very dear friend called Andy Dodd. Shout out to Andy Dodd, you best watch this one, motherfucker. Told me about Bob Vylan. He'd seen them at Glastonbury. He's an electrician. He has a long history of doing lighting and various sound things at Glastonbury, and that's how he came across Bob Vylan. And he suggested I might like their music. I had a listen, and I do. Now, I'm a big music buff, as regular viewers will know, and I appreciate poetry set to music, and that's what Bob Vylan does. You can call it what you like, call it hip-hop, call it rap, call it post-punk. It doesn't matter what you call it, it is what it is. And it's a couple of angry young men who get cross about injustice and poverty and, you know, the kind of things that we all ought to be much more vocal about. Because, come on guys, we can send spaceships to Mars, why can't we feed the planet? I mean, it's really quite straightforward, but we'll come to that as well. Now, as a thoroughgoing and lifelong anarcho-socialist, I have never taken sides in a single war that is a squabble between different groups of thieves. So don't ask me to support Ukraine and not Russia, and don't ask me equally to support Russia and not Ukraine. By the same token, I'm not taking sides in a war in which there are no working class interests at stake. You know, I've said before and I'll say it again, rich people start wars to defend their economic interests. Interestingly enough, they're not the people who fight in them and die in them. Poor people do that, and they shouldn't. There is no squabble between Russian workers and Ukrainian workers. Neither party has any stake in this war. The same is true of Israel and Gaza. The only things at stake there are capitalist interests. But the people who are dying in those wars and the people who are suffering starvation and death are people who have no stake in these conflicts. Whilst I don't agree with the politics of Bob Vylan, and equally I don't agree with the politics of Lou Reed or Bob Dylan either, or Kneecap for that matter, but we'll come to them in a minute. I like their music, I like their spirit, if you like, I like their passion, and I like the fact that they're prepared to raise questions that don't ordinarily get discussed. What I'm really objecting to here, and I would defend the right of anybody to say what they think, but only if they're going to defend it with rational argument. What really pisses me off is the British government, for whom I have precisely no respect. I have no respect for any government. They are all, from my perspective, illegitimate. Is the fact that whilst they think it's okay, for which read profitable, to be supplying the death machine that is the Israeli Defense Force, doesn't look like they're defending themselves, it looks like they're the aggressors. But like I say, I don't take sides. I defend violence, never. But it's perfectly okay for the British government to be supporting the efforts of a brutal military machine in its commitment to genocide, and let's be clear, that's what it is. The other side of that conflict would like to see their opponents wiped out as well. This is not a solution to anything, and all it will do is create more war. But what I'm really objecting to, just to make the point as clearly as I possibly can, is the abject and utter hypocrisy of those who defend the cutting of benefits to vulnerable people with disabilities, and at the same time defend the supporting of a military death machine, are at the very same time condemning people who want to stop this war. Now, you know, what's that stench in the room? You know exactly what it is. It's hypocrisy. So Bob Vylan went on before Kneecap. Kneecap had been in the news a whole lot more than Bob Vylan of late because of alleged anti-Semitic remarks and the waving of flags. Well, I don't support the waving of any flag. Tell you what, I'll wave a flag when we've overthrown capitalism and nobody goes to bed hungry at night in the face of an absolute surplus of food, and nobody leads a pointless, meaningless life that is threatened by a grisly and untimely death. I'll wave a flag then. But when that happens, and it can't happen before the overthrow of capitalism, we'll live on a planet where there are no countries, there are no boundaries, everybody is free, and everybody gets to live the life that they want to live. I'll wave a flag then, and it'll have Earth on it. Yeah? And we'll be advertising to the rest of the universe that humanity finally got its shit together and we've sorted out capitalism. It's never coming back. That's when I start waving flags. But it gets worse. So you've got these ridiculous clowns in government. Keir Starmer, who used to be apparently a human rights lawyer. No commitment to human rights then. Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, who is pushing to have Palestine Action, a group that I also don't agree with, being proscribed as a terrorist organisation. A terrorist organisation. They're cutting disability payments whilst increasing expenditure on nuclear weapons. Yes. Less wheelchairs, more bombs. Disgusting. Who voted for that? Oh, well, actually, anybody who voted did. Anybody who voted for another bloody government, and that's exactly what you've got. And anybody who thought there was going to be any difference, any kind of meaningful change, because they elected a different shade of colour of government, ought now to be going, ooh, I got that wrong, didn't I? Yeah, I got that wrong. Oh well. Maybe it's time to start listening to that mighty Giri Yogurt with his chat about global socialism. Maybe it is. Well, it certainly is. It's long overdue, my friends. Long overdue. So, Bob Vylan and Kneecap are being condemned for saying things the government does not like. None of which, incidentally, are any kind of a threat to their grip on power. No, they ought to be much more worried about people like me. And I'm not the only one, by the way, you know? I'm not the only one. Lots and lots of people think the way that I think, and lots of people are firmly of the opinion that capitalism is a system of society that can never, ever, despite the best efforts, the sometimes sincere and genuine efforts of people who believe that they can reform the system so that it works in the interests of everybody. It ain't that kind of system, guys, and I don't want you all dead. I don't want to be having a violent revolution. What I want is the majority of people to come to their senses and realise that when you've got a broken system, there ain't no point trying to fix it. It's time to get a new one. I do realise that I've probably raised more questions than I've answered, and that's fine. Take me to task. Tell me where you think I'm wrong. And let's talk about it, because that, my friends, is the way we're going to change society. I've had a lovely ride, I've had a lovely rant, and I'm going to end today's little film around about here. And then in tomorrow's little film, I'm going to head off down Langdale, 2 wheels. Thank you all for watching, apart from those who abandoned me halfway through when I told them to. And I hope you're enjoying Freddy Dobbs. See you in the next one. Stop recording.